The snow fell in thick, silent curtains over the village of Wolfstein that January morning in 1945, covering the frozen mud and the scars of war beneath a deceptive blanket of white. Sister Apollonia stood at the frost-covered window of the convent's kitchen, her breath forming small clouds in the cold air as she watched the world outside slowly disappear under winter's grip. She was 34 years old, though the war had aged her in ways no mirror could show. Her hands, red and chapped from endless work, clutched a rosary worn smooth by years of prayer. Behind her, the ancient stone walls of St. Hildegard's convent held what little warmth the meager coal ration could provide. The building had stood for 3 centuries, surviving wars and plagues, and now it sheltered 12 nuns, 7 orphaned children, and the weight of impossible choices. What Sister Apollonia didn't know as she stared into that white void was that within hours, a decision would come stumbling through their gates that would test everything she believed about faith, mercy, and what it meant to be human when the world had gone mad. The convent sat on the eastern edge of Wolfstein, a village of perhaps 400 souls in the rural borderlands where Germany met its own unraveling. Once this had been peaceful farming country, where generations had worked the same fields and worshipped in the same church. Now, in the winter of 1945, it was a place holding its breath. The Western Front was collapsing. Everyone knew it, though speaking such truth aloud could cost you everything. Refugees passed through almost daily, hollow-eyed families pulling carts loaded with whatever they'd managed to save, fleeing the advancing Allied armies. Soldiers, too, sometimes broken units straggling eastward, their uniforms filthy, their faces showing that peculiar emptiness that came from seeing too much death. The village had learned to keep its doors locked and its eyes down. Survival meant not asking questions, not offering help to the wrong person, not being noticed by the authorities who still enforced the Reich's rules with savage efficiency, even as the Reich itself crumbled. Sister Apollonia had taken her vows 16 years earlier, in a different world, when she was still Apollonia Richter, a carpenter's daughter from Munich with a calling she couldn't ignore. She'd given herself to a life of prayer, service, and obedience, believing that within the convent's walls she could do God's work away from the complications of the world. But the world had a way of crashing through walls. When the war came, the convent had been requisitioned twice as a temporary hospital, its chapel converted to hold rows of wounded men who screamed in the night. They'd cared for soldiers, for bombed-out civilians, for anyone the authorities sent them. They'd buried the ones who didn't survive in the small cemetery behind the apple orchard. Sister Apollonia had learned to clean wounds that made her stomach turn, to hold the hands of dying boys who called for mothers, who would never know where their sons' bodies lay. She'd learned that faith wasn't a peaceful thing, not in times like these. It was a daily battle fought in the space between what you were told to do and what your conscience demanded. Mother Superior Benedicta ran the convent with an iron will wrapped in velvet pragmatism. At 61, she'd survived the Great War, the chaos of the Weimar years, and now this new nightmare. Her face was a map of deep lines earned through decades of hard decisions. She understood the game they had to play, the delicate balance of cooperating just enough with the local party officials to be left alone, while quietly doing what good they could in the margins. She'd hidden a Jewish family in the root cellar for 3 weeks back in 1943, until they could be moved further along an underground network. She'd looked the other way when Sister Walburga had given their food rations to starving forced laborers who'd escaped from a nearby work camp. But she'd also turned away people when the risk was too great, when helping would have meant exposing everyone in the convent to destruction. These were the calculations of survival, and they left marks on the soul that no confession could fully cleanse. The knock came at 2:30 in the afternoon, so weak that Sister Apollonia almost missed it over the wind howling around the convent's corners. She was in the entrance hall having just finished sweeping when she heard it, barely more than a scratch against the heavy wooden door. Her first instinct was to ignore it. They'd been warned by Herr Ottokar Reinhardt, the burgomaster, just 3 days earlier that deserters were in the area, and that anyone offering them aid would be considered an enemy of the state. Ottokar was a rigid man of 52, his face perpetually set in an expression of bureaucratic severity, his party badge always prominently displayed. He'd made it clear that he was watching, that loyalty was being tested, that these were the times when true Germans showed their character. But the scratching came again, weaker still, and Sister Apollonia found her hand moving to the bolt before her mind had fully decided. She opened the door just a crack, and that's when she saw him. He was collapsed against the doorframe, more dead than alive, his Wehrmacht uniform so covered in frozen mud and blood that the gray-green fabric was barely recognizable. His face was the color of old snow, lips blue, eyes glassy with fever and pain. He couldn't have been more than 22 or 23, though suffering had carved him into something ancient. His left leg was wrapped in filthy bandages that had once been someone's shirt, and the smell of infection hit Sister Apollonia like a physical blow. He looked up at her with eyes that held no hope, only the animal desperation of a creature that knows it's dying but can't stop trying to live. His mouth moved and a whisper came out, barely audible. "Please." Just that one word, in a voice scraped raw. "Please." Sister Apollonia stood frozen in that doorway, her hand still on the bolt, and felt the full weight of the moment crushing down on her. Every rational thought screamed at her to close the door, to protect the convent, to protect the children sleeping upstairs, to protect herself. But something older than reason, something that lived deeper than fear, wouldn't let her move. She looked into that dying boy's eyes and saw every son, every brother, every human being who'd ever needed mercy in a merciless world. She didn't remember making the decision. Her body simply acted. She hooked her arms under his shoulders and dragged him inside, his dead-weight legs scraping across the stone floor. He was lighter than he should have been, wasted by hunger and fever. She kicked the door shut behind them and pulled him into the small storage room off the entrance hall, her heart hammering so hard she thought it might break through her ribs. What had she just done? She'd just committed treason. She'd just put everyone in mortal danger. But when she looked down at him crumpled on the floor among sacks of potatoes and dried beans, she couldn't feel regret, only a strange, terrifying clarity. This was what her vows actually meant. Not the comfortable prayers in a safe chapel, but this, the terrible cost of choosing mercy when mercy could kill you. She ran through the convent's corridors, her habit flying behind her, and found Mother Superior Benedicta in the library, working through their dwindling account books by candlelight. The old woman looked up, saw Apollonia's face, and immediately set down her pen. "What have you done?" she said, not as a question, but as a statement of fact. Sister Apollonia told her in a rush of words that tumbled over each other. "A soldier, dying at the door. I just couldn't." Mother Superior Benedicta closed her eyes for a long moment, her lips moving in what might have been a prayer, or might have been a curse. Then she stood, her joints cracking with age and cold, and said, "Show me." They went together to the storage room, where Gefreiter Leonhard Voss lay unconscious, his breathing shallow and rattling. Mother Superior Benedicta knelt beside him with a grace that belied her years, pulled back the filthy bandages, and examined the wound. Her face revealed nothing, but Sister Apollonia saw her jaw tighten. "This is bad," she said quietly. "Infection, fever, probably gangrene starting. He needs a doctor, proper medicine, care we can't give him here. And if we try, if anyone finds out, they'll execute us all. They'll close the convent, take the children, and make an example of us. You understand that?" Sister Apollonia nodded, her throat too tight to speak. "Do you want me to put him back outside?" she managed to whisper. Mother Superior Benedicta was silent for a long time, staring down at the unconscious boy. Then she said, No. If we've already damned ourselves, we might as well be damned for the right reasons. Get Sister Walburga. Tell her to bring clean water, bandages, and whatever medical supplies we have left. And tell her to keep her mouth shut. We tell no one else, not yet. Understood?" Sister Apollonia felt something break open in her chest, a flood of gratitude and terror mixed together. "Yes, Mother Superior. Thank you." The old woman looked at her with eyes that had seen too much. "Don't thank me yet, child. We may all regret this before it's done." Sister Walburga was 28, a farmer's daughter from Bavaria with strong hands and a practical mind. When Sister Apollonia found her in the laundry room and whispered what had happened, her face went pale. "Are you insane?" she hissed. "They'll kill us. They'll kill all of us." "I know the risks," Sister Apollonia said, keeping her voice steady though her hands shook. "But Mother Superior has decided we need your help." Sister Walburga stared at her for a long moment, a dozen emotions flickering across her face, fear and anger and something else. Something that might have been relief that someone had finally chosen to do something good in a world gone rotten. Fine, she said finally. But if Ottokar finds out, if anyone finds out, I'm telling them you forced me. Fair enough, Sister Apollonia replied. They gathered what they needed and returned to the storage room, where Mother Superior Benedicta had already begun cutting away the soldier's uniform. The three women worked in tense silence, cleaning the wound as best they could with their limited supplies. The soldier, Leonhard Voss, though they didn't know his name yet, drifted in and out of consciousness, sometimes crying out in delirium, sometimes weeping, sometimes whispering words they couldn't understand. His leg was a horror, the infection spreading in angry red lines up toward his thigh. He needs a doctor, Sister Walburga said, stating the obvious. Mother Superior Benedicta sat back on her heels, thinking. Dr. Adalbert Grimm, she said finally. If anyone in this village still has a conscience, it's him. But approaching him is a risk, Sister Apollonia volunteered immediately. I'll go. It's my responsibility. The old woman nodded. Go after dark. Be careful. And if he refuses, don't push. We can't afford to have him report us. Dr. Adalbert Grimm lived alone in a narrow house on the village's main street, his wife having died of pneumonia 2 winters earlier. At 58, he was exhausted. A man who'd spent his entire career healing people, now forced to watch his country tear itself and the world apart. He'd patched up soldiers and civilians alike, done amputations on kitchen tables, delivered babies in bomb shelters, and buried more patients than he cared to count. When Sister Apollonia knocked on his door that night, snow swirling around her in the darkness, he opened it with the weary resignation of a man expecting bad news, because bad news was all that ever came anymore. Sister, he said, what's wrong? She told him quickly, quietly, standing in his doorway because she didn't dare go inside where neighbors might see. His face remained carefully neutral as he listened, but she saw his hands tighten on the doorframe. You're asking me to commit treason, he said flatly. Yes, she replied. I am. And if you say no, I'll understand. But he's dying, and we can't save him alone, and I'm asking anyway, because I have to believe there's still some humanity left in this village. Dr. Grimm looked past her into the snowy darkness, his breath steaming. If I do this, if I help you, and we're caught, they'll hang me. Probably hang all of us. String us up in the village square as a lesson. You know that. I know, Sister Apollonia said. He was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, Give me 10 minutes to get my bag. Relief flooded through her so intensely she thought she might collapse. Thank you, Doctor. Don't thank me, he said grimly. I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing it because I'm tired of watching people die when I could help them. I'm tired of being afraid. Maybe that makes me a fool, but at least I'll be a fool with a clear conscience. They walked back to the convent through the dark streets, keeping to the shadows, not speaking. The village was under curfew, and being out after dark was dangerous, but the snow covered their tracks almost as fast as they made them. At the convent, Dr. Grimm examined Leonhard Voss by the light of a single candle, his face growing grimmer by the moment. This is bad, he said finally, echoing Mother Superior Benedicta's earlier assessment. The infection is advanced. He needs antibiotics, proper surgical care, probably amputation if we want to save his life. And we have none of that. The best I can do is clean the wound properly, give him some sulfa powder I've been hoarding, and hope his body is strong enough to fight it off. It's not much of a chance, it's more of a chance than he had an hour ago, Mother Superior Benedicta said. Do what you can, Doctor. He worked for over an hour, cleaning, debriding dead tissue, applying the precious sulfa powder, rebandaging with clean strips of cloth the nuns provided. Leonhard screamed when the pain broke through his fever, and Sister Walburga had to hold him down while Dr. Grimm worked. When it was done, the doctor sat back, wiping sweat from his forehead despite the cold. Keep him warm, keep him hydrated, change the bandages twice a day, and pray, he said. That's all we can do now. If the fever breaks in the next 48 hours, he might make it. If it doesn't, well, at least he'll die with someone caring for him instead of alone in a ditch. He packed his bag and stood to leave. I'll come back in 2 days to check on him if I can do it safely. In the meantime, keep him hidden. If Ottokar or any of the party officials find out, they won't hesitate to make examples of all of you. We understand, Mother Superior Benedicta said. Thank you, Adalbert. We won't forget this. The doctor paused at the door. I had a son, he said quietly. He was 24 when he died at Stalingrad. I never got to bury him, never got to say goodbye. That boy in there, he's someone's son too. Maybe helping him is my way of saying goodbye to mine." Then he was gone, disappearing into the snowy night. The next 48 hours were a special kind of hell. They moved Leonhard to a small room in the cellar, a space barely bigger than a closet that had once been used for storing wine. It was cold, but it was hidden, accessible only through a door concealed behind shelves in the main cellar. Sister Apollonia appointed herself his primary caretaker, spending hours sitting beside him in the candlelight, sponging his burning forehead with cool water, forcing tiny sips of broth between his cracked lips when he was conscious enough to swallow. He thrashed and raved in his fever, calling out names, shouting orders, weeping for his mother. Sometimes he spoke coherently, fragments of sentences that painted a picture of horror. "So many dead," he whispered once, his eyes staring at something Sister Apollonia couldn't see. "All of them dead. And for what? For what? We were told we were heroes, but we were just. He trailed off, weeping. Sister Apollonia held his hand and prayed, not the formal prayers of the liturgy, but desperate, formless pleading with God to let this boy live, to let her choice mean something, to let mercy triumph just this once. On the second day, young Ansgar found her. He was 11, a thin, serious boy who'd been orphaned when his parents died in a bombing raid on Cologne. He'd been at the convent for 8 months, helping with chores and learning his letters from the nuns. He was bright and observant, too observant. Sister Apollonia was coming up from the cellar when she nearly ran into him in the corridor. His eyes were wide with questions. "There's someone down there," he said. "I heard voices. Who is it?" Sister Apollonia's mind raced. She knelt down to his level, putting her hands on his thin shoulders. "Ansgar," she said gently, "I need you to trust me. There is someone down there, someone who needs our help. But it's very, very important that you don't tell anyone about this. Not the other children, not anyone from the village, no one. Do you understand?" "Why?" he asked, with a child's perfect logic. "Because sometimes helping people is dangerous," she said. "And if the wrong people find out, they might hurt us for doing it. But it's the right thing to do, even if it's dangerous." Ansgar thought about this, his young face serious beyond his years. War had aged all of them. "Is it a soldier?" he asked. Sister Apollonia hesitated, then nodded. "A German soldier," she clarified. "He's hurt and sick and he needs our help. Will you keep our secret, Ansgar?" The boy was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "My papa told me before he died that being good meant helping people even when it was hard, even when you were scared. Is that what you're doing?" "Yes," Sister Apollonia said, feeling tears prick her eyes. "That's exactly what we're trying to do." Ansgar nodded solemnly. "Then I'll keep your secret," he said. "And if you need help, I can help too. I'm good at keeping quiet." She pulled him into a hug, this serious little boy who'd already lost so much. "Thank you," she whispered. "You're very brave." The fever broke on the morning of the 3rd day. Sister Apollonia was dozing in her chair beside Leonhard's makeshift bed when she heard him stir. She opened her eyes to find him looking at her, really looking at her for the first time, his eyes clear though exhausted. "Where am I?" he whispered, his voice like broken glass. "You're safe," she said, though the word felt absurd. "You're in St. Hildegard's convent in Wolfstein. I'm Sister Apollonia. You came to our door 3 days ago, nearly dead. We've been caring for you." He stared at her as if trying to make sense of her words. "Why?" he asked finally. "Why would you help me? You could be killed for this." "Because it was the right thing to do," she said simply. He closed his eyes and she saw tears leak from the corners. "I don't deserve kindness," he said. "You don't know what I've done, what I've been part of." "I don't need to know," Sister Apollonia said, though part of her wondered if that was true. "Right now, you're a human being who needs help. That's enough." Over the following days, as his strength slowly returned, Leonhard Voss told her his story in fragments, painful confessions that came in the dark hours when pain and guilt made it impossible to sleep. He'd been drafted at 19, a farm boy from a village not unlike this one. He'd believed at first in the glory they'd promised, the great destiny of the Reich. He'd marched into Poland, into France, feeling like a hero. But then came the Eastern Front, and everything changed. He'd seen things there that had killed something inside him, Atrocities committed not just by others but by men in his own unit. Orders followed because refusing meant being shot yourself. He'd watched villages burn, seen civilians executed for suspected partisan activity, seen the special units that followed behind the army and left mass graves in their wake. I told myself I was just following orders, he said, his voice hollow, that I had no choice. But that's a lie, isn't it? There's always a choice. I chose to survive, and I chose to look away, and that makes me guilty of all of it. Sister Apollonia didn't offer easy absolution. She'd learned that some wounds couldn't be healed with platitudes. Instead, she said, "You can't change what you've done. None of us can change our pasts. But you can choose what you do with whatever time you have left. You can choose to be different." He looked at her with something like hope, fragile and desperate. "Do you really believe that, sister? That people can change? That redemption is possible after everything?" "I have to believe it," she said, "because if I don't, then none of this means anything. All the suffering, all the evil. If there's no possibility of redemption, then we're all just lost. And I refuse to believe that. I refuse to believe God made us just to be lost." But keeping Leonhard hidden was becoming increasingly difficult. On the 5th day, Herr Ottokar Reinhardt came to the convent, his party badge gleaming on his coat, his eyes cold and suspicious. Mother Superior Benedicta received him in the convent's small parlor, her face a mask of serene politeness. "To what do we owe this visit, Herr Burgomaster?" she asked. Ottokar didn't accept the offer of ersatz coffee. He stood in the center of the room, radiating authority and threat. "There have been reports," he said, "of unusual activity at the convent. Lights burning late at night. People seen coming and going. In these times, Mother Superior, we must all be vigilant. The enemy is everywhere, and traitors hide among us. I'm sure you understand." Mother Superior Benedicta met his gaze without flinching. "We care for orphans and maintain our devotions, Herr Burgomaster. Our lights burn late because prayer doesn't keep bankers' hours, and our doors open for those in need as they always have. If that's suspicious, then we've been suspicious for 300 years. Ottokar's jaw tightened. "Don't play games with me, Mother Superior. I know there are those who think compassion is more important than loyalty, who think their Christian charity gives them the right to undermine the state. Let me be very clear. If I find that this convent is harboring enemies, deserters, or anyone who threatens the security of the Reich, I will not hesitate to take action. The full weight of the law will fall on you and everyone here. Do I make myself understood?" "Perfectly understood," Mother Superior Benedicta said, her voice like ice wrapped in velvet. "Now, if you're quite finished threatening elderly nuns, I have work to do. We all have our duties in these difficult times, don't we?" Ottokar stared at her for a long moment, trying to intimidate her through sheer force of will, but she'd faced down far more frightening things than small-minded bureaucrats. Finally, he turned and left, his boots echoing on the stone floors. When he was gone, Mother Superior Benedicta allowed herself one moment of trembling before straightening her spine and going to find Sister Apollonia. "We're running out of time," she said. "He suspects something. We need to decide what to do with your soldier." That evening they held a council in Mother Superior Benedicta's office, just the 3 nuns who knew the full truth. "We have limited options," the old woman said. "We can try to keep hiding him until he's strong enough to travel, then send him on his way. We can turn him over to the authorities and claim we were holding him to do exactly that. Or we can try to get him false papers and civilian clothes and smuggle him out of the area entirely. Each option has risks." Sister Walburga spoke first. "If we turn him in now, Ottokar might believe we were always planning to do so. It could protect the convent. It's the safest choice for us." Sister Apollonia felt her stomach turn and condemned Leonhard to execution or being sent back to the front to die. "After all we've done to save him." Sister Walburga looked away. "I'm not saying it's right. I'm saying it's practical. We have responsibilities to the other children, to the other sisters. How many lives are we willing to risk for one soldier?" "As many as it takes," Sister Apollonia said, surprised by the fierceness in her own voice. "If we turn him in now, then everything we've done, all the risk we've taken, it all becomes meaningless. Worse than meaningless, it becomes a betrayal. We'll have saved his life just to hand him over to death. I won't do it. I can't." Mother Superior Benedicta held up a hand for silence. I understand both perspectives, she said, but Sister Apollonia is right. We've already made our choice. We don't get to unmake it now just because it's become inconvenient or dangerous. We see this through. The question is how. I might be able to help with that, came a voice from the doorway. They all turned to see Dr. Grimm standing there, his face grim. I came to check on the patient and overheard. I apologize for eavesdropping, but I have a proposal. Dr. Grimm stepped into the room, closing the door behind him. I have contacts, he said quietly. People who've been moving refugees, displaced persons, even deserters, along an underground network, getting people out of Germany, or at least to safer places where they can disappear. It's dangerous and it's not guaranteed, but it's a chance. I can reach out to them, see if they can take one more. Mother Superior Benedicta leaned forward. How long would that take? A week, maybe 2, the doctor said. And in the meantime, we'd need to keep him hidden and get him strong enough to travel. Given his condition, that's optimistic, but not impossible. The bigger problem is papers. He'll need identity documents, ration cards, travel permits. I might be able to forge some basic papers, but they won't hold up under serious scrutiny. He'd have to move fast and avoid checkpoints. Sister Apollonia felt hope flicker in her chest. Can you really do this, doctor? Can you get him out? I can try, he said. That's all I can promise. But sister, you need to understand, even if we succeed in getting him out of Wolfstein, his chances of survival are still slim. The country is collapsing. There are checkpoints everywhere, SS units executing deserters on sight, bombing raids, starvation, chaos. We might save him from dying in that cellar only to have him die on the road somewhere. I know, Sister Apollonia said, but at least he'll die free with a chance instead of in a cell or in front of a firing squad. That has to mean something. Dr. Grimm nodded. Then I'll make the arrangements. But we need to be even more careful now. Ottokar is suspicious and he's not a fool. One mistake and we'll all pay for it. The next week was a tightrope walk over an abyss. Sister Apollonia continued caring for Leonhard, watching him grow stronger day by day. His wound was healing, though he'd always walk with a limp. More importantly, something in his spirit was healing too. He helped where he could, despite his weakness, insisting on doing small tasks like folding bandages or peeling potatoes. I need to be useful, he told Sister Apollonia. I need to do something good, even if it's small. The children, who'd gradually learned about the hidden soldier despite everyone's best efforts to keep it secret, took to sneaking down to visit him. Young Ansgar especially spent hours sitting with Leonhard, asking him questions about the world beyond the village. Leonhard, in turn, seemed to find some peace in talking to the boy, telling him stories carefully edited to remove the worst horrors about the places he'd seen, the people he'd met. You remind me of my little brother, he told Ansgar one day. He'd be about your age now if he's still alive. I haven't seen him in 3 years. When the war is over, Ansgar said with a child's certainty, you'll find him again. You'll go home and everything will be better. Leonhard smiled sadly. I hope you're right, he said. I hope at least some of us get to go home. But the village was growing more dangerous by the day. The front was getting closer. They could hear artillery in the distance now, a constant rumble like thunder that never stopped. More refugees poured through, and with them came rumors. The Americans were coming from the west, the British from the north, the Russians from the east. Germany was being crushed from all sides. In the village, fear turned people vicious. There were denunciations, sudden arrests, people disappearing in the night. Ottokar and the remaining party officials grew more paranoid and more brutal, determined to maintain control even as everything fell apart. Anyone suspected of defeatism, of disloyalty, of helping the enemy, was dealt with swiftly and publicly. 2 men were hanged in the village square for hoarding food. A woman was arrested for listening to foreign radio broadcasts. The message was clear: conform, obey, or die. In this atmosphere, keeping Leonhard hidden became almost impossible. Every knock on the door might be the Gestapo. Every visitor might be an informer. The nuns moved through their days with constant fear, waiting for the moment when their secret would be discovered. That moment came on a gray afternoon, 12 days after Leonhard had stumbled through their door. Sister Apollonia was in the kitchen, preparing the evening's meager meal, when she heard shouting from the front of the convent. She ran toward the sound and found Sister Walburga in the entrance hall, blocking the door, her face pale. It's Frau Kunigunde Brenner, she whispered urgently. She's demanding to see Mother Superior. She says she knows we're hiding someone. Sister Apollonia's blood turned to ice. Frau Brenner was the bitter widow who'd lost both her sons in the war, a woman whose grief had curdled into rage at the world. If she knew, if she told Ottokar, they were finished. "Let her in," came Mother Superior Benedicta's calm voice from behind them. The old woman stood there, straight-backed and serene, though Sister Apollonia could see the tension in her jaw. "Let her in, and bring her to my office. Sister Walburga, fetch some tea. We'll handle this like civilized people." Frau Kunigunde Brenner was 47 but looked 60, her face carved into harsh lines by loss and anger. She stormed into Mother Superior Benedicta's office like an avenging fury, her eyes blazing. "I know what you're doing," she spat. "I know you're hiding a soldier here, a deserter. My sons died for the fatherland, died doing their duty, and you're protecting cowards who run away. How dare you? How dare you betray their memory?" Mother Superior Benedicta gestured to a chair. "Please sit, Frau Brenner. Let's discuss this calmly." "I will not sit," the woman shouted. "I will not be calm. I came here to tell you that I'm going to Herr Ottokar. I'm going to report you. You'll all be arrested, as you should be. Traitors, all of you." The old nun's face remained peaceful. "You're certainly free to do that, Frau Brenner. But before you do, I'd like you to meet someone. Would you grant me that courtesy?" The widow hesitated, thrown off by the lack of denial or pleading. "Meet who?" she demanded. "The soldier you're so angry about," Mother Superior Benedicta said. "Come with me, just for a moment. Then you can do whatever you feel you must." They went down to the cellar, Sister Apollonia's heart pounding so hard she thought it might burst. Mother Superior Benedicta led them to the hidden room where Leonhard was sitting on his cot, reading from a battered Bible by candlelight. He looked up as they entered, and his face went white when he saw the anger in Frau Brenner's eyes. He tried to stand, winced at the pain in his leg, managed to get to his feet. "This is Gefreiter Leonhard Voss," Mother Superior Benedicta said quietly. "Leonhard, this is Frau Brenner. She lost both her sons in the war. She believes we're wrong to help you. I think you should tell her why you're here." Leonhard looked at the widow, and Sister Apollonia saw shame and sorrow war across his face. "Frau Brenner," he said, his voice hoarse. I don't know what to say. I'm sorry for your loss. I'm sorry for all of it." She stared at him with hatred. "Sorry," she hissed. "You're sorry. My boys are dead. My beautiful boys who believed in something, who had courage, and you ran away. You're a coward and a disgrace." He didn't flinch from her words. "You're right," he said. "I am a coward. I ran. I deserted. But Frau Brenner, do you know what I was running from? Do you know what they were asking me to do? I've done terrible things in this war. I've followed orders that haunt me every night. I've seen things that no human being should see. And when they told me to do it again, when they told me to help execute civilians, women and children, for the crime of being in the wrong place, I couldn't. I just couldn't anymore. So yes, I ran. I chose to be a coward instead of a murderer. And if that makes me a disgrace, then I'll accept that. But I won't apologize for refusing to kill innocents, not even to honor your son's memory." The room was silent, except for the distant rumble of artillery. Frau Brenner stood frozen, her face working through a dozen emotions. "My sons," she whispered. "They wouldn't have. They were good boys. They wouldn't have done such things." "I don't know your sons," Leonhard said gently. "Maybe they were good men who found ways to stay human in an inhuman situation. I hope they were. But Frau Brenner, this war, it turns good people into monsters. It asks us to do evil and calls it duty. Your sons died, and I'm sorrier for that than I can say. But me dying too won't bring them back. More death won't honor their memory. The only thing that honors them is trying to be better, trying to stop the cycle of killing, trying to remember that we're all human beings, even the enemy, even the coward, even the deserter." The widow's face crumpled. She sank down onto a crate, her body shaking with sobs. "They told me," she gasped out between tears. "They told me my boys died heroes, that it meant something, but it didn't. Did it? It was all for nothing. All this suffering, all this death for nothing." Sister Apollonia knelt beside her, putting a hand on her shoulder. "It wasn't for nothing if we learn from it," she said softly. "If we choose to be better, if we choose mercy over vengeance. Your sons can't come back, Frau Brenner, but you can choose what their deaths mean. You can choose to honor them by protecting life instead of demanding more death. Frau Brenner wept for a long time, years of grief and rage pouring out of her. Finally, she looked up at Mother Superior Benedicta with red, swollen eyes. "I won't tell Ottokar," she whispered. "I won't report you. God help me, I won't. But don't ask me to forgive. I can't forgive, not yet. Maybe not ever." "No one's asking you to forgive," Mother Superior Benedicta said gently. "We're just asking you to let mercy exist in the world, even when it's hard, even when it hurts." The widow nodded slowly, then stood and left without another word. They listened to her footsteps fade away, and Sister Apollonia realized she was shaking. "That was too close," she whispered. "It's not over yet," Mother Superior Benedicta said. "But perhaps we have one more ally than we thought. Sometimes grace appears in the strangest places." 2 days later, Dr. Grimm returned with news. "I've made the arrangements," he said. "There's a group moving through in 3 days, heading west toward the American lines. They can take him, but he needs to be ready to travel, and he needs papers. I've forged what I can, identity documents saying he's a farm laborer exempted from service due to injury. It's not perfect, but it might hold up long enough." Sister Apollonia felt relief and sorrow mixed together. 3 days. That was all the time they had left. She went down to tell Leonhard and found him sitting with young Ansgar, teaching the boy to carve a small wooden figure. When she told him the news, his face showed the same mix of emotions she felt. "I'll be ready," he said. "And sister, I don't know how to thank you. You saved my life, all of you. You risked everything for me and I'll never forget it. You can thank us by living," she said, "by getting somewhere safe and building a life that honors the chance you've been given. By being the man you want to be, not the man this war tried to make you." He nodded, his eyes bright with unshed tears. "I'll try," he said. "I swear I'll try." Young Ansgar looked between them. "You're leaving," he said, his voice small. Leonhard put a hand on the boy's shoulder. "I have to," he said. "But Ansgar, I want you to remember something. Even in the darkest times, there are people like Sister Apollonia, like everyone here, who choose to be kind, who choose to help. You're going to grow up in a world that's been broken by this war, and it's going to be hard. But if you remember that kindness is possible, that courage is possible, then maybe you can help fix it. Will you remember that?" Ansgar nodded solemnly. "I'll remember," he said. "I promise." The next 3 days passed in a blur of preparation and dread. They gathered what supplies they could spare for Leonhard's journey, food and water and warm clothes. Dr. Grimm brought the forged papers and went over Leonhard's cover story again and again, until he could recite it without hesitation. Sister Apollonia spent every spare moment with him, talking about everything and nothing, trying to memorize his face, his voice. This person she'd saved and who'd somehow become important to her in a way she didn't fully understand. On the final evening, they held a small secret prayer service in the hidden cellar room. All the nuns and children who knew the truth gathered around. Mother Superior Benedicta led them in prayers for safe journey, for peace, for a world where such choices wouldn't be necessary. When it was done, she placed her hand on Leonhard's head in blessing. "Go with God," she said, "and if you survive this, if you make it to safety, live a life that makes this risk worthwhile. Live for all of us who couldn't run, who have to stay and face whatever comes." He bowed his head, overcome with emotion. "I will, Mother Superior. I swear it." They moved him out in the dead of night, Dr. Grimm and Sister Apollonia walking him through the dark streets to a barn on the edge of the village where the group would meet. The snow had stopped, but the cold was bitter, their breath steaming in the air. Leonhard limped between them, leaning on a walking stick, dressed in civilian clothes that hung loose on his wasted frame. At the barn, they found 5 other people waiting, shadows in the darkness, refugees and deserters all taking the same desperate gamble for freedom. A man who introduced himself only as Thomas seemed to be the leader. He looked Leonhard over with experienced eyes. "Can you walk?" he asked bluntly. "I can keep up," Leonhard said, his voice steady despite his fear. Thomas nodded. "Then you're welcome. We leave in 5 minutes." Sister Apollonia pulled Leonhard aside for one last goodbye. "Be safe," she said, her voice breaking. "Please, be safe." He took her hands in his. "Sister Apollonia," he said, You taught me that redemption is possible, that even someone like me who's done terrible things can choose to be better. I'll carry that with me wherever I go. Thank you. Thank you for seeing me as human when I'd forgotten how to see myself that way." She couldn't speak, could only nod, tears streaming down her face. Then Thomas was calling them to move, and Leonhard was limping away into the darkness with the others, and Dr. Grimm was gently pulling her back toward the village. They walked in silence until they reached the convent where Mother Superior Benedicta was waiting at the door. "It's done," Dr. Grimm said. "He's gone." The old woman nodded. "Then we pray," she said, "and we wait. And we hope that grace is stronger than all the evil in the world." The next morning, Herr Ottokar Reinhardt came to the convent again, his face thunderous. "There was an incident last night," he announced. "A group of traitors and deserters were caught trying to flee the village. They're being dealt with as we speak. I trust none of you know anything about this." Sister Apollonia felt her heart stop. Mother Superior Benedicta's face remained serene. "We know nothing of any incident, Herr Burgomaster. We were all asleep in our beds." Ottokar's eyes narrowed. One of them, when questioned, mentioned that someone in the village had been helping deserters, providing aid, shelter, false papers. "We're investigating. Anyone found to be involved will face the harshest penalties. I'm sure you understand." "Of course," Mother Superior Benedicta said. "Justice must be served." Ottokar lingered, clearly hoping to provoke some reaction, some sign of guilt. But the old woman simply stood there patient and unmoved until he finally left. When he was gone, Sister Apollonia grabbed Mother Superior Benedicta's arm. "The group was caught," she whispered frantically. "Leonhard, he might be." "We don't know that," the old woman interrupted firmly. "We don't know anything, and we can't know. We have to trust that God is watching over him. We have to have faith." But faith was hard in the days that followed. They heard rumors of executions, of interrogations, of a crackdown on anyone suspected of aiding deserters. Dr. Grimm stopped coming to the convent, and they didn't dare go to him, afraid of drawing attention. The village held its breath, waiting for the next blow to fall. Then on a gray morning 2 weeks later, everything changed. The sound of artillery that had been a distant rumble suddenly became deafening. The Americans were here. The village of Wolfstein was about to be liberated or conquered, depending on your perspective. Ottokar and the remaining party officials fled in the night, taking what vehicles and supplies they could. The few soldiers still in the area either surrendered or melted away into the countryside. And then, in a matter of hours that felt both endless and instantaneous, American troops were rolling down the main street. Tanks and trucks and soldiers who looked impossibly young and well-fed compared to the skeletal figures the villagers had become. The war, at least for Wolfstein, was over. At the convent, they watched from the windows as the Americans set up their command post in the village square. "We survived," Sister Walburga whispered, as if she couldn't quite believe it. "Yes," Mother Superior Benedicta said. "We survived. Now we see what comes next." What came next was chaos of a different kind. The Americans brought food, medicine, order. They also brought questions. There were investigations into war crimes, into who'd been a party member, who'd collaborated, who'd resisted. Dr. Grimm was questioned but cleared, his reputation as a healer who'd helped everyone regardless of politics protecting him. The convent was investigated too, but they found nothing suspicious, just a group of nuns who'd cared for orphans and maintained their devotions through the war. Sister Apollonia waited every day for news of Leonhard, hoping against hope that he'd somehow survived, that he'd gotten through. But weeks passed, then months, and no word came. She tried to make peace with not knowing, tried to accept that she might never know if her choice had saved him or merely prolonged his suffering. She threw herself into the work of rebuilding, caring for the flood of displaced persons and refugees who came through, helping the village heal from years of trauma. It was nearly a year later, in the winter of 1946, when a letter arrived at the convent. It was addressed to Sister Apollonia, the handwriting careful and precise. Her hands shook as she opened it. "Dear Sister Apollonia," it began. "I don't know if this letter will reach you, or if you'll even remember me, but I had to try to tell you that I made it. The night we left Wolfstein, our group was nearly caught, but we managed to slip through. I made it to the American lines, surrendered, spent time in a POW camp, and was eventually released. I'm living now in a small town in Bavaria, working as a carpenter's apprentice, trying to build a life worth the chance you gave me. Every day I think about what you taught me, that redemption is possible, that we can choose to be better than our worst moments. I'm trying to live that truth. I'm trying to be the man you saw in me when I couldn't see it myself. I heard that Wolfstein survived the war relatively intact, that the convent is still standing. I hope this means you're all safe and well. I hope young Ansgar is growing up strong. I hope Mother Superior Benedicta is still guiding you all with her wisdom. And I hope you know that you saved more than my life that day. You saved my soul. You reminded me what it means to be human. I will never forget that. I will never forget you. With eternal gratitude and respect, Leonhard Voss. Sister Apollonia read the letter 3 times, tears streaming down her face, before she went to find Mother Superior Benedicta. The old woman read it in silence, then looked up at Sister Apollonia with eyes that held a lifetime of sorrow and joy mixed together. "You did good, child," she said softly. "You chose mercy when mercy was dangerous. And it mattered. It will always matter." Sister Apollonia nodded, unable to speak. In a world that had tried so hard to extinguish compassion, to make cruelty the only rational choice, they had chosen differently. And that choice had echoed out into the world in ways they might never fully know. One life saved, one soul redeemed. In the vast calculus of war and suffering, it might seem small. But to Leonhard, to Sister Apollonia, to everyone who'd risked everything to make that choice, it was everything. It was the proof that even in the darkest times, light could survive, that love could triumph over fear, that the simple act of seeing another person's humanity and responding with compassion could change the world, one heart at a time. Years later, when Sister Apollonia was an old woman herself, she would tell the story to the young novices who came to St. Hildegard's convent. She would tell them about the winter of 1945, about the soldier who begged for help, about the choice that could have killed them all, and she would tell them what she'd learned, the truth that had sustained her through all the years since. "We are all called to be brave," she would say, "not with the bravery of soldiers and battles, but with the bravery of compassion, the courage to help when helping is dangerous, the strength to choose mercy when mercy makes us vulnerable. That is the bravery that changes the world. That is the bravery that saves us all." The young novices would listen, wide-eyed, and some would understand. And in understanding, they would carry that truth forward into their own times, their own challenges, their own moments when they would have to choose between fear and love. And in that way, the light would continue to spread, one act of courage at a time, one choice for compassion over cruelty, one decision to see the humanity in others, even when the world demanded otherwise. This is the legacy of Sister Apollonia and Gefreiter Leonhard Voss, a legacy written not in history books but in the quiet actions of ordinary people who chose to be extraordinary when it mattered most. Subscribe to our channel to hear more incredible true stories of courage, compassion, and humanity from history's darkest and brightest moments. Hit that like button if this story moved you, and leave a comment telling us about a time when someone showed you unexpected kindness. These stories matter. Your stories matter. Let's keep sharing them together.